The sun dipped low behind the rolling peaks of the Smoky Mountains, casting long shadows across the winding road as our Chevy Tahoe navigated the twists and turns with practiced ease. It was just me, Jacob, behind the wheel, with my friends Chris, Nate, and Ashley scattered throughout the spacious interior. Our laughter echoed against the windows, punctuated by occasional bursts of music from the radio as we embraced the freedom of our weekend getaway. In the dwindling light of late afternoon, a decision hung in the air: take the well-traveled route or cut through the rugged, lesser-known backcountry. Adventure beckoned like a siren's call, and we, fueled by youthful daring and a thirst for the unknown, chose the latter, a path less traveled, promising secrets untold and vistas unseen. The decision led us down narrower roads, where ancient trees leaned conspiratorially overhead, their branches whispering tales of forgotten histories. The air grew cooler, tinged with the scent of pine and earth, as if nature itself held its breath in anticipation of our journey. Each curve revealed a new panorama, a tableau painted in hues of emerald and gold, a reminder that beauty thrives where few venture. Amidst this natural symphony, our serenity shattered like glass on stone. A broken-down sedan lay abandoned on the roadside, its tires deflated and windows reflecting the fading sunlight in fractured patterns. My foot eased off the gas, and we rolled to a stop, curiosity mingling with concern. A figure emerged from the shadows, clad in a nondescript grey jacket that seemed to absorb the light around it, leaving only a silhouette against the backdrop of encroaching dusk. "Hey, need any help?" Chris called out, his voice breaking the spell of silence that had enveloped us. The man turned towards us, his features obscured by the twilight, and for a moment the world seemed to hold its breath. His plea for assistance hung in the air, a fragile thread woven between trust and suspicion. I glanced at my friends, their faces etched with a mixture of empathy and caution. Nate leaned forward, his brow furrowed in silent contemplation, while Ashley's eyes flickered with a hint of unease. Only Chris, ever the optimist, offered a reassuring nod, a beacon of goodwill amidst the encroaching shadows. "We could use a hand," the man finally replied, his voice a rasp against the backdrop of rustling leaves and distant bird calls. Without hesitation, we stepped out into the unknown, our footsteps echoing on the uneven pavement. The man introduced himself as James, his demeanor a blend of gratitude and restrained anxiety. His story unfolded in halting phrases, a broken engine, a stranded wife awaiting his return, but beneath his words lurked a palpable tension, a subtle undercurrent that hinted at hidden agendas and unspoken truths. "We live just a few miles from here," James explained, gesturing towards the forest's edge where a narrow path vanished into darkness. "If you could just give me a ride, I'd be forever grateful." The request hung between us, suspended like a spider's web glistening with morning dew. Instinct warred with reason, each whispering their own warnings as we weighed the risks against the call of compassion. The setting sun painted the world in shades of amber and rose, casting an illusion of safety over our deliberations. In the end, it was empathy that tipped the scales. Nate nodded first, his voice a steady reassurance in the gathering gloom. "We can't leave him stranded out here," he declared, his words a lifeline thrown into the swirling currents of uncertainty. With reluctant agreement, we guided James into the back seat, his presence a silent question mark in the narrative of our journey. The Tahoe rumbled to life once more, its engine a counterpoint to the rhythmic beat of our hearts. As we followed the winding path into uncharted territory, I couldn't shake the feeling that we had crossed a threshold from which there could be no return, a pivotal moment when our lives became intertwined with the enigma of James and his hidden motives. Ahead, the mountains loomed like ancient sentinels, their peaks cloaked in mystery and the promise of revelations yet to come. The road stretched out before us, a ribbon of asphalt winding deeper into the heart of the wilderness, where shadows danced and secrets whispered on the wind. Little did we know, as the first stars blinked into existence overhead, that our journey had only just begun, that each mile brought us closer not only to James's home, but also to the truth hidden amidst the tangled web of his intentions. The journey into the heart of the mountains unfolded like a tapestry, woven from threads of uncertainty and fleeting glimpses of hidden truths. James sat in the back seat, his presence a silent spectre that cast a pall over our camaraderie. His eyes, reflected in the rearview mirror, flickered with an intensity that belied the calm facade he projected. "We appreciate you helping us out back there," Chris remarked, breaking the uneasy silence that had settled over us like a thick fog. James nodded curtly, his gaze shifting between each of us as if measuring our resolve. "Thank you again," he murmured, his voice a murmur beneath the hum of the engine. "I live just up ahead. A few more miles and we'll be there." The road twisted and turned, snaking through dense forests where ancient trees loomed like silent sentinels, their branches entwined in a dance as old as time itself. Shadows clung to the edges of our perception, their presence a reminder of the fragile boundary between safety and the unknown. As we neared James's purported destination, a sense of unease settled over me like a cloak of shadows. Nate glanced at me from the passenger seat, his brow furrowed in silent contemplation. Ashley sat beside him, her fingers tapping nervously against the armrest, while Chris hummed a tune under his breath, a futile attempt to dispel the mounting tension. "We should keep an eye on him," Nate whispered, his voice barely audible over the drone of the engine. "Something doesn't feel right." I nodded in agreement, my thoughts mirroring his apprehension. James had been vague about the specifics of his predicament, his story unfolding in fits and starts like a puzzle missing crucial pieces. Yet, beneath his veneer of gratitude lay a current of unease, a subtle shift in demeanor that spoke volumes without uttering a single word. "We'll stay cautious," I replied, my voice tinged with determination. "Let's see where this road leads." The Tahoe rounded a bend, and before us lay a clearing bathed in the silvery glow of moonlight. A modest cabin stood nestled among towering pines, its windows aglow with the warm flicker of candlelight. James directed us to a gravel driveway that crunched beneath the weight of our tires, a stark contrast to the pristine wilderness that surrounded us. "We're here," James announced, his tone laced with relief as he climbed out of the vehicle. "Thank you again for your kindness." We followed suit, stepping onto solid ground that seemed to exhale beneath our feet. The night air was crisp with the scent of pine and wood smoke, a reminder of civilization amidst the untamed wilderness. James led the way to the cabin's porch, where a flickering lantern cast dancing shadows across weathered boards. Inside, the cabin was a sanctuary of warmth and solitude. A crackling fire burned in a stone hearth, its amber glow illuminating rustic furnishings and shelves lined with books. James motioned for us to take a seat, his movements deliberate as he stoked the fire with practiced ease. "Can I offer you something to drink?" he inquired, his voice softer now, devoid of the urgency that had marked our earlier encounter. Chris accepted a glass of water with a grateful smile, while Ashley politely declined, her gaze darting between James and the cabin's interior. Nate and I exchanged a wary glance, our senses attuned to the subtle nuances of our surroundings. "You have a beautiful home," Nate ventured, his words a tentative bridge in the chasm of uncertainty that stretched between us. James inclined his head in acknowledgement, his expression unreadable in the shifting light of the fire. "It's been in my family for generations," he replied, his tone tinged with nostalgia. "A place of refuge in these mountains." The conversation ebbed and flowed like a river winding through rugged terrain, each word a pebble skipping across the surface of deeper currents. We learned little about James's background, his family, or the circumstances that had led him to our chance encounter on the lonely road. Yet, beneath his gracious hospitality lay a thread of caution, a reminder that trust, once given, could be as fragile as glass. As the fire dwindled to glowing embers, casting long shadows that danced along the cabin walls, a subtle shift occurred in the air. Nate caught my eye, his expression mirrored my own apprehension. Ashley's gaze remained fixed on James, her fingers tracing invisible patterns on the arm of her chair. Chris, ever the optimist, leaned forward with genuine curiosity, oblivious to the undercurrents that surrounded us. "We should get going," I suggested, my voice breaking the uneasy silence that had settled over us like a shroud. "It's getting late, and we still have a long drive ahead." James nodded, his demeanor a mask of polite acquiescence. "Of course," he replied, his words a measured response to the unspoken tension that lingered between us. "I'll show you the way back to the main road." With practiced efficiency, he guided us out into the cool night air, where the forest whispered secrets to the stars overhead. The Tahoe rumbled to life once more, its engine a reassuring heartbeat in the darkness. As we retraced our path through the winding roads, I couldn't shake the feeling that we had glimpsed only the surface of a deeper mystery, one that lay buried beneath the tranquil facade of James's mountain retreat. Ahead, the road stretched out like an uncertain path through the wilderness, where shadows clung to the edges of our perception, and the truth remained elusive as the fleeting breath of wind through autumn leaves. Little did we know, as the cabin disappeared from view behind us, that our encounter with James had set in motion a chain of events that would unravel the bonds of trust and loyalty, revealing the stark reality hidden amidst the beauty of the Smoky Mountains. The moon hung low in the ink-black sky, casting a silvery glow over the winding road as our Tahoe cut through the night like a solitary vessel navigating uncharted waters. The cabin, with its warm hearth and flickering fire, faded into the rearview mirror, leaving behind a lingering sense of unease that clung to us like a second skin. Silence settled over the interior of the vehicle, broken only by the occasional rustle of fabric or the soft hum of tires against asphalt. Each mile brought us deeper into the heart of the mountains, where shadows danced at the edges of our vision and the air grew heavy with anticipation. "You think he was telling the truth?" Ashley's voice pierced the quiet, her words a hesitant echo of the doubts that gnawed at our collective conscience. Nate glanced at her from the passenger seat, his expression grave. "About his family cabin?" "Maybe," he replied, his tone measured. "But there was something off about him, don't you think?" I gripped the steering wheel tighter, the leather cool beneath my fingertips. "It's hard to say," I admitted, my thoughts racing like a river rushing over rocky terrain. "But we need to stay cautious. We don't know what we're dealing with." Chris, sitting in the back beside Ashley, leaned forward with an earnest expression. "I think he needed help," he offered, his voice filled with empathy. "Maybe he's just a guy in a tough spot." Nate shook his head, his skepticism palpable in the dim interior of the Tahoe. "I don't know, man," he replied. There was something about the whole situation that didn't sit right with me. The road ahead curved sharply, leading us deeper into the wilderness where the scent of pine mingled with the cool night air. Each bend revealed a new vista, a panorama of towering trees and rocky outcrops silhouetted against the star-studded sky. It was a landscape both breathtaking and foreboding, where beauty and danger coexisted in fragile harmony. "We need to find our way back," I asserted, my voice firm. "Back to the main road, back to safety." Nate nodded in agreement, his gaze fixed on the winding path ahead. "Agreed," he replied. "But how do we know we're heading in the right direction?" I glanced at the GPS mounted on the dashboard, its screen a beacon of hope amidst the uncertainty. "We'll follow the GPS," I stated, my tone infused with determination. "We'll find our way out of here." As if in response, a sudden gust of wind swept through the open windows, carrying with it the scent of rain and distant thunder. The night sky, once serene, now churned with restless energy as storm clouds gathered on the horizon. Nature itself seemed to mirror our own unease, a tempest brewing beneath the tranquil facade of the Smoky Mountains. "We should find a place to stop," Chris suggested, his voice tinged with urgency. "Somewhere safe, until the storm passes." I scanned the roadside for a suitable shelter, my eyes searching the darkness for any sign of refuge. Ahead, nestled between towering trees, a clearing appeared. A small alcove shielded from the elements by overhanging branches. I steered the Tahoe towards it, the gravel crunching beneath our tires as we came to a stop. The rain began to fall in earnest, a steady drumbeat against the vehicle's roof. Inside, the air grew thick with tension as we waited, each of us lost in our own thoughts and apprehensions. Thunder rumbled in the distance, its voice a warning in the night, a reminder of our vulnerability in this untamed wilderness. "We should talk about what happened back there," Ashley suggested, her voice steady despite the tremor of fear that lingered in her eyes. Nate nodded, his expression grave. "James led us into unknown territory," he began, his words measured. "We need to be prepared for anything." Chris leaned forward, his brow furrowed in thought. "But what if he was just a guy in trouble?" he countered, his optimism a flicker of light amidst the encroaching darkness. "What if we're overreacting?" I sighed, the weight of responsibility heavy upon my shoulders. We can't afford to take chances, I replied, my voice tinged with regret. Not out here. The storm intensified outside, the rain lashing against the windows with renewed vigor. Inside the Tahoe, we were cocooned in a fragile bubble of safety, a sanctuary amidst the tempest that raged beyond. Yet even as we sought refuge from the storm, a different kind of turmoil churned within us, the uncertainty of our encounter with James, the lingering doubt that clouded our perceptions. "We'll wait out the storm," I stated finally, my voice a beacon of resolve in the gathering gloom. "And then we'll find our way back." Nate and Ashley exchanged a glance, their silent agreement a testament to our shared determination. Chris nodded, his faith in our collective judgment unwavering. Together, we waited in the dim interior of the Tahoe, our thoughts drifting like leaves on the surface of a restless river. Outside, the night sky raged on, its fury a stark reminder of the unforgiving nature of the mountains. Thunder echoed through the trees, a primal roar that reverberated in our bones. Yet amidst the chaos, a quiet resolve settled over us, a bond forged in adversity, a testament to the strength of friendship and the resilience of the human spirit. As dawn broke over the horizon, painting the world in shades of rose and gold, we emerged from our makeshift sanctuary. The storm had passed, leaving behind a cleansed landscape bathed in the soft light of morning. Ahead, the road stretched out like a promise, a path leading us back to familiar terrain, back to the safety of civilization. But as we resumed our journey, the memory of James and his enigmatic presence lingered in the recesses of our minds. We had escaped the storm, but the true test lay ahead, a test of trust, of loyalty, and of the bonds that held us together in the face of unforeseen challenges. Little did we know, as the Tahoe rolled onward through the mist-shrouded mountains, that our encounter with James had set in motion a chain of events that would forever alter the course of our lives, a journey into the heart of betrayal, where the line between friend and foe blurred like shadows in the shifting light of dawn. The morning sun cast a golden hue over the rugged landscape, its warmth a welcome embrace after the tumultuous night spent weathering the storm. As our Tahoe wound its way through the winding mountain roads, a sense of cautious optimism permeated the air, a fragile respite amidst the uncertainty that lingered in the wake of our encounter with James. "We need to figure out where we are," Nate remarked, his voice cutting through the quiet contemplation that had settled over us like a blanket of mist. "The GPS isn't much help out here." I nodded in agreement, my gaze fixed on the road ahead. "We'll keep an eye out for any signs or landmarks," I replied, my words a beacon of determination in the face of adversity. "We'll find our way back." Chris peered out of the window, his eyes scanning the surrounding terrain with a mixture of curiosity and unease. "Do you think James knew this area well?" he pondered aloud, his voice tinged with uncertainty. Ashley shifted in her seat, her brow furrowed in thought. "He seemed familiar with the cabin," she offered cautiously. "But beyond that, I'm not sure." The Tahoe rounded a bend, revealing a panoramic view of rolling hills and distant peaks, bathed in the soft glow of morning light. Nature had a way of masking its secrets, cloaking the landscape in layers of beauty and mystery. Yet, beneath its tranquil facade lay a labyrinth of hidden dangers, a reminder that not all paths led to safety, and not all encounters were as they seemed. "We should talk about what happened," Nate suggested, his tone earnest. "About James." I glanced at him, his expression a mirror of my own concerns. "What do you think his motives were?" I asked, the question lingering in the air like a leaf caught in an eddy. Nate hesitated, his thoughts a whirlwind of speculation and doubt. "I'm not sure," he admitted finally, "but something about him didn't sit right with me. His story, his demeanor, it was all too calculated." Chris nodded in agreement, his gaze distant as he recalled the events of the previous night. "He needed our help," he mused, his voice tinged with uncertainty. "But why lead us into the mountains? Why not just ask for a ride to town?" Ashley folded her arms, her expression thoughtful. "Maybe he had something to hide," she suggested quietly. "Something he didn't want us to know." The Tahoe continued its journey through the mountains, each mile bringing us closer to the truth that lay buried beneath layers of deception and half-truths. The road stretched out before us like a lifeline, guiding us through a landscape both familiar and foreign. a testament to the resilience of the human spirit in the face of uncertainty. "We need to be prepared for anything," I asserted, my voice steady despite the tumult of emotions that churned within me. "We can't afford to trust blindly." Nate nodded in agreement, his expression grim. "Agreed," he replied. "But how do we unravel this mystery? How do we find out what James was hiding?" The answer, elusive as it was, lay somewhere in the labyrinth of our memories. The fragments of conversation, the nuances of body language, the unspoken truths that lingered just beyond our reach. With each passing moment, the distance between us and James widened, yet the shadow of his presence loomed large in our thoughts. "We should backtrack," Chris suggested suddenly, his voice cutting through the haze of uncertainty. "Go back to where we found him. Maybe there are clues we missed." The idea took root, its promise of clarity a beacon of hope amidst the uncertainty that clouded our judgment. I nodded in agreement, my resolve hardening with each passing second. "Let's do it," I affirmed, my voice a declaration of intent. "We'll find the truth, whatever it takes." As the Tahoe retraced its path through the winding mountain roads, a sense of urgency infused our actions, a determination to uncover the secrets that lay hidden beneath the surface of our encounter with James. The morning sun climbed higher in the sky, casting long shadows that stretched like fingers across the landscape. "We're getting close," Nate observed, his eyes scanning the roadside for any sign of familiarity. "Just a little further." Sure enough, around the next bend, the broken-down sedan came into view, a silent sentinel bearing witness to the events that had unfolded in its shadow. The air grew thick with anticipation as we approached, our footsteps echoing on the gravel as we surveyed the scene. "The car," Ashley murmured, her voice a whisper of recognition. "This is where it all began." Chris crouched beside the sedan, his eyes scanning the interior for any clue that might shed light on James's true intentions. "There has to be something here," he muttered, his fingers tracing the edges of a torn piece of paper. I joined him, my heart pounding in my chest as we pieced together the fragments of our memories, the broken-down car, the enigmatic stranger, and the web of deceit that had ensnared us all. Nate stood nearby, his gaze distant as he surveyed the landscape with a mixture of determination and unease. "Look at this," Chris exclaimed suddenly, holding up a crumpled note. "It's addressed to someone named Marcus. Could this be a clue?" I took the note from him, my hands trembling slightly as I unfolded it with care. The words were cryptic, written in a hurried scrawl that spoke of urgency and secrecy. "Meet me at the cabin," it read, the ink blurred with moisture from the previous night's rain. Marcus. The name hung in the air like a spectre, its significance elusive yet undeniable. "Who is Marcus?" Ashley wondered aloud, her voice tinged with apprehension. Before any of us could respond, a rustling in the underbrush caught our attention, a figure emerging from the shadows, its presence a sudden intrusion in the quiet tableau of our investigation. James stood before us, his expression unreadable as he regarded us with a mixture of resignation and defiance. "So you found it," he remarked evenly, his voice a calm amidst the storm of our emotions. "You were never supposed to come back here." The revelation hit us like a thunderclap, shattering the fragile facade of trust that had masked his true intentions. "What is this, James?" Nate demanded, his voice a mixture of anger and betrayal. "Who is Marcus? What are you hiding?" James sighed, his shoulders slumping slightly beneath the weight of our accusations. "Marcus was my partner," he confessed reluctantly. "We had a plan, a business deal gone wrong. I needed your help to set things right." The truth unfolded before us like a tapestry, its threads woven with lies and half-truths. James had manipulated us, used our compassion as a pawn in his dangerous game. The cabin, the broken-down car, it had all been part of his elaborate deception, a web of deceit spun to ensnare us in his desperate bid for redemption. "You lied to us," Chris accused, his voice a mixture of disappointment and disbelief. "You used us." James met his gaze evenly, his expression devoid of remorse. "I had no choice," he replied simply. "I needed to find Marcus to confront him, but I couldn't do it alone." The silence that followed was thick with tension, each of us grappling with the implications of James's betrayal. The mountains loomed around us, their silent majesty a stark reminder of the vastness of the wilderness. and the depths of human deceit. "We trusted you," Ashley whispered, her voice barely audible above the rush of blood in my ears. James nodded solemnly, his gaze shifting between each of us. "I'm sorry," he offered quietly. "I never meant for any of this to happen." But apologies were hollow against the backdrop of broken trust and shattered illusions. The morning sun continued its ascent, casting a harsh light on our fractured camaraderie. We stood at a crossroads, our paths diverging in the aftermath of James's revelation, a betrayal that had left scars deeper than any physical wound. "We need to go," I stated finally, my voice a whisper of finality. "Back to the main road, away from here." Nate nodded in agreement, his features hardened with resolve. "Let's get out of here," he agreed, his words a vow to leave behind the tangled web of James's deceit. As we retreated to the safety of the Tahoe, the mountains bore witness to our departure, a testament to the fleeting nature of trust and the enduring power of betrayal. James watched us go, his silhouette a solitary figure against the backdrop of rugged terrain. Little did we know, as the Tahoe rolled away from the scene of our unraveling trust, that our encounter with James had irrevocably altered the course of our journey. A journey marked by the stark realization that not all bonds were forged in loyalty, and not all friendships could withstand the weight of deception. The Tahoe cut through the winding mountain roads with a quiet determination, each mile a testament to the resilience of friendship tested by betrayal. Inside the vehicle, a palpable tension hung in the air, a silent echo of the truths uncovered and the lies exposed in the shadow of James's deception. "We should have seen it coming," Nate remarked bitterly, his hands clenched on his knees. All the signs were there, right in front of us. I nodded in agreement, my gaze fixed on the road ahead. "But we trusted him," I replied softly, my voice carrying the weight of regret. "We wanted to believe he was genuine." Chris shifted in his seat, his brow furrowed in thought. "What do we do now?" he asked, his voice a whisper in the confined space of the Tahoe. "We need to figure out our next move," Ashley interjected, her voice steady despite the turmoil that churned within her. "We can't just pretend this didn't happen." The mountains loomed around us, their majestic peaks a stark contrast to the turmoil that raged within our hearts. Nature had a way of reflecting our emotions. The storm clouds gathering overhead mirrored the tempest of betrayal that had torn through our friendship. "We need to confront him," Nate declared suddenly, his tone resolute. "We can't let him get away with this." I glanced at him, his determination a spark of hope amidst the darkness of our disillusionment. "You're right," I agreed, my voice steady. "We need to find James and make him answer for what he's done." The Tahoe wound its way through the mountains, each bend in the road bringing us closer to the truth we sought. The landscape unfolded like a map of our own emotions, twisting and turning, revealing hidden depths and unexpected turns. We were adrift in a sea of uncertainty, navigating the turbulent waters of betrayal with only our resolve to guide us. "Where do we even start?" Chris wondered aloud, his voice tinged with frustration. Ashley reached into her bag, retrieving a crumpled map of the area. "We go back to the cabin," she suggested, her finger tracing the winding roads depicted on the paper. "It's where it all began." Nate nodded in agreement, his gaze focused on the map spread out before us. "If James has any answers, they'll be there," he affirmed, his voice a beacon of determination in the gathering storm. The Tahoe slowed to a stop at the familiar gravel driveway, the cabin standing before us like a sentinel guarding its secrets. The morning sun cast long shadows across weathered boards, the silence of the mountains broken only by the rustle of leaves in the breeze. "We're here," I announced quietly, the weight of our purpose heavy upon my shoulders. As we stepped out onto the worn wooden porch, the air was thick with anticipation, a sense of reckoning that hung between us like a veil. Nate led the way, his footsteps echoing on the creaking floorboards as we entered the cabin once more. Inside, the atmosphere was unchanged, a testament to the passage of time and the enduring presence of our memories. The fire in the hearth had burned low, its embers a faint glow in the dim interior. Shadows danced along the walls, their shapes distorted by the flickering candlelight. "We need to search the cabin," Chris suggested, his voice breaking the solemn silence that enveloped us. We split up, each of us scouring the cabin for any clue that might shed light on James's motives and Marcus's role in his deception. Drawers were pulled open, shelves were scrutinized, and every corner was examined with meticulous care. "I found something!" Ashley called out suddenly, her voice echoing from the back room. We gathered around her as she held up a worn leather journal, its pages yellowed with age and bound by a frayed ribbon. "It belonged to James," she explained, her fingers tracing the embossed initials on the cover. "Maybe there's something in here that can help us understand." I took the journal from her, my hands trembling slightly as I flipped through the pages. The entries were sparse, written in a hurried scrawl that mirrored the urgency of our situation. Dates and times blurred together, fragments of conversations and cryptic references scattered across the pages. "There's mention of Marcus," I observed, my voice a whisper in the stillness of the cabin. James was desperate to find him. Nate leaned closer, his brow furrowed in concentration. But why? He wondered aloud, his eyes scanning the entries for any clue that might unravel the mystery. Chris pointed to a passage near the end of the journal, his finger tracing the faded ink. "Here," he said quietly. "James talks about a business deal gone wrong. He needed Marcus's help to fix it." The pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place, a narrative of betrayal and redemption, of alliances forged and broken in the unforgiving landscape of the mountains. James's motives became clearer, his actions a desperate bid to right the wrongs of the past. "We need to find Marcus," Nate asserted, his voice filled with renewed purpose. "He's the key to understanding all of this." The sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows that stretched like fingers across the cabin floor. Outside, the mountains whispered secrets to the wind, their ancient wisdom a stark contrast to the turmoil that gripped our hearts. "We'll start by retracing James's steps," I decided finally, my voice a calm amidst the storm of emotions. "We'll find Marcus, and we'll make sense of all this." With the journal in hand, we left the cabin behind, the weight of our purpose guiding us through the gathering darkness. The mountains watched over us, their silent vigil a testament to the resilience of the human spirit in the face of betrayal and uncertainty. The journey to find Marcus led us deeper into the heart of the mountains, where each trail and path became a thread in the tapestry of our quest for answers. We followed the clues left behind by James's journal, navigating the rugged terrain with a determination born of necessity and a shared resolve to uncover the truth. "He mentioned a meeting place," Nate recalled, his voice tinged with excitement as we huddled around the map once more. "Somewhere remote, away from prying eyes." Chris pointed to a cluster of marked coordinates on the map, his finger tracing the winding paths that led to a secluded valley nestled between towering peaks. "Could this be it?" he wondered aloud, his gaze searching our faces for confirmation. Ashley nodded, her expression resolute. "It's our best lead," she affirmed, her voice a testament to our collective determination. "We have to follow it." The Tahoe rumbled to life once more, its engine a steady hum beneath the canopy of stars that stretched across the night sky. We journeyed through the darkness, our headlights cutting through the shadows that clung to the edges of our vision. Each mile brought us closer to the truth, or so we hoped. As dawn broke over the horizon, painting the world in hues of pink and gold, we arrived at the secluded valley described in James's journal. The air was crisp with the scent of pine and dew, a stark contrast to the tension that coiled within us like a sleeping serpent. "We're here," I announced quietly, the gravity of our mission weighing heavily upon my shoulders. Nate led the way, his steps sure and purposeful as we ventured deeper into the valley. The terrain was rugged and unforgiving, yet we pressed on with a determination born of necessity and a shared desire for closure. "There," Chris whispered suddenly, his voice barely audible above the rustling of leaves in the breeze. Ahead, nestled among the gnarled roots of an ancient oak tree, a figure stood silhouetted against the rising sun. Marcus, a man of few words and enigmatic presence, regarded us with a mixture of curiosity and caution as we approached. "We're looking for Marcus," Nate stated, his voice steady despite the turmoil that churned within us. Marcus inclined his head in acknowledgement, his eyes assessing each of us in turn. "You found him," he replied simply, his voice a deep rumble that echoed through the valley. "We need answers," Ashley asserted, her tone firm yet tinged with vulnerability. "About James, about everything." Marcus studied us with an intensity that spoke of years spent navigating the complexities of life in the mountains. James and I had a deal, he began slowly, his words measured. A business venture that went awry. He needed my help to set things right. The revelation hung between us like a veil, its implications vast and far-reaching. Marcus unfolded a worn piece of parchment from his pocket, its surface marked with intricate symbols and cryptic notations. This was our plan, he continued, his finger tracing the faded ink, to reclaim what was lost. The pieces of the puzzle began to fit together, a narrative of ambition and betrayal, of alliances forged and broken amidst the unforgiving terrain of the mountains. James's desperation had led him to manipulate our trust, using us as unwitting pawns in his dangerous game. We trusted him, Chris murmured, his voice tinged with regret. We wanted to believe he was genuine. Marcus nodded solemnly, his gaze fixed on the horizon where the sun climbed higher with each passing moment. James had a way of convincing people, he admitted quietly, but his methods were his downfall. As the truth settled over us like a mantle, Marcus offered us a small, weathered pouch. This belonged to James, he explained, his voice heavy with the weight of their shared history. Perhaps it holds the answers you seek. Inside the pouch, we found a collection of documents and a faded photograph, a testament to the friendship that had once bound James and Marcus together in pursuit of a shared dream. Among them was a letter addressed to us, penned in James's distinctive handwriting. "I'm sorry," it read, the ink blurred with moisture from the morning dew. "For everything." The silence that followed was profound, each of us grappling with the enormity of James's deception and the impact it had wrought upon our lives. The mountains stood sentinel around us, their ancient wisdom a reminder of the fleeting nature of trust and the enduring power of betrayal. "We should go," Ashley suggested finally, her voice breaking the quiet reverie that had settled over us. "Back to the cabin. It's time to put this behind us." Nate nodded in agreement, his expression somber yet resolute. "Let's go home," he agreed, his words a quiet affirmation of our shared desire to leave the shadows of the past behind. As we retraced our steps through the valley, Marcus watched us go, a solitary figure against the backdrop of rugged terrain. The sun climbed higher in the sky, casting long shadows that stretched like fingers across the landscape.